Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to Zudi Pickups. In today's video, we'll be talking about the RAD R1 running shoes. So these shoes released July 30th of 2023 for a retail price of $170. They're actually RAD's second shoe. So their first shoe being the RAD ones, which were more of a kind of like a training shoe, like a CrossFit shoe, if you will. And this shoe is a dedicated running shoe. So the company itself, RAD, they're a new company. I think they just launched in like 2020 or 2021. I'm not exactly sure, but I got wind of them not that long ago because I just saw this interview with one of their, I believe their founder, this guy called Ben Massey. I think he's from the UK, and he's talking about like why he decided to start this company, and he wanted to kind of like combine his passions. He was really passionate about sneakers, he was passionate about fitness, training, and he was also passionate about like streetwear, street culture, all that kind of stuff. And I was like, hey, it's kind of like the same stuff that I'm interested in, so I should start following this brand. And unfortunately, I could not get any RAD ones, not because I couldn't buy them. I'm pretty fast with my mouse, so I can usually get shoes. The problem was that they didn't make a size 14, and I'm a size 14, and they would only go up to size 13. So I couldn't really try their RAD ones. But fortunately for me, the new model that they came out with, the running shoe, the R1, came in a size 14. So here we are. I picked it up as soon as it came out. I took it out for a little spin today, and I just kind of wanted to make a quick little overview / first impressions video. So this is not a review. I haven't really put significant miles into this shoe yet to properly do a full review. So yeah, let's get into it. I just kind of want to talk about the composition of the shoe first, and then we're going to talk about like the performance and like the fit and all that kind of stuff towards the end. So the composition of the shoe, as you can see, it's a pretty simple shoe. It reminds me a lot of like a Hoka Rincon, I think. I actually have one of those over there. You know what? I'm gonna go grab it. Hold on, just a second. All right, I'm back here with my Hoka Rincons. I mean, as you can see, they're kind of very similar shoes in terms of the fact that you have a kind of like a mesh upper, monolithic midsole, and a very minimal outsole. So maybe they took a lot of inspiration from the Rincon, but they're essentially like the same type of shoe. The upper is constructed of this kind of like 3D structured mesh material. It's interesting because you can kind of see these kind of like horizontal striations here in the mesh. It gives the mesh a lot of structure, and it allows the mesh to have a little bit more lockdown than just like a traditional mesh. The problems with traditional mesh in a running shoe, obviously, is that because it's mesh, it'll kind of expand, it'll stretch, so your foot kind of moves around in the shoe a little bit, especially in this like midfoot area when you're striking, when you're running. The structural mesh, I believe, really helps alleviate that issue. It gives the midfoot area a lot more lockdown than a traditional mesh would, and it retains the breathability that mesh has. So it's kind of like the best of both worlds. Kind of surrounding the upper here, we have these I don't know what to call them, like TPU overlay reinforcements. We have some here on the toe cap right here. You got some here on the heel counter. And we have like a big one right here on the lateral side, which is interesting because you normally see this kind of thing on the medial side to kind of like aid with arch support. But for here, for RAD, I think it's more or less just kind of like an aesthetic thing. You got like the big RAD logo right here, and the lines kind of flow nicely into the midsole, so it's like really aesthetically pleasing. You can tell the guys that made this actually really, cared about the aesthetics of the shoe, which is, I think, is great for a running shoe, because I don't know, man. I don't know what it is about running shoes, but they're like mostly just kind of ugly. But anyway, I digress. The TPU overlays continue over into the kind of like the lace cage area right here. It kind of reinforces where the laces go in. On my colorway, I have a little pop of lime right here. You have the name of the shoe, R1, here on the bottom of the lace cage. And yeah, that's about it for the this mesh area. Moving on to the tongue, I do really like the tongue, and I have to point out that the tongue is gusseted. I love gusseted tongues on any type of shoe, because especially running shoes, right? Like when you're wearing running shoes and running in them, they always kind of like go like this if you don't have a gusseted tongue, and the tongue just kind of like sits like all like wonky like this. I hate that. So I love how they put in a gusseted tongue. The tongue itself is made out of this very airy mesh, medium cushion, and it breathes pretty well, and it provides a decent amount of cushioning here. So if you want to really cinch down your laces, you're not going to apply too much pressure on the top of your foot. Kind of going around to the foot entrance area. I don't know what these what these terms are officially, but I'm just going to call it the foot entrance area. You have this very soft and plush foam and fabric kind of wrapping around it. I think this is really nice because a lot of times I run with no-show socks, and I have skin that touches these areas right here, especially kind of like towards the top here. And if this material is even a little bit abrasive, if you put in a lot of miles, it starts to really rub and chafe, and you can get blisters back here. So I'm glad that they use this really slick and soft material that is very low friction. So that's a nice material choice here. You have a little bit of a cushion here on the inside of the heel cup area to kind of prevent your heel from lifting out when you run. It's not the most lockdown here in the heel. It's just minimal, but I think it's just enough to do its job. No complaints here. Moving on to the interior of the shoe, we have a very plain insole here that's removable. It's just like a little EVA insole. I mean, nothing to really write home about here, but the fact that you have a removable insole I think is nice, because especially for running shoes, a lot of people like to wear custom insoles, so you have the ability to do that. So yeah, let's move on to the midsole here, which is I think the star of the show for this shoe. They use a proprietary midsole foam called Swell Foam. It's their own thing. And I believe it's made out of 50% sugarcane. So, it's very environmentally friendly. That's kind of like RAD's whole thing. They're all about being environmentally friendly. And, fun fact, the name RAD stands for Rally Against Destruction. So, it kind of like goes in with the whole kind of like brand DNA of trying to be environmentally friendly. So that's cool. I think more companies maybe should take a page out of their books. So anyway, back to the midsole. We'll talk about how it feels later. It just kind of has this diagonal pattern throughout. Kind of got these cool lines that mix in with the upper here, but not a whole lot going on, just one midsole material on this entire shoe, and that's where all your cushioning and support is coming from. Moving on to the outsole. Outsole is super simple. As you can see, it's literally like 4 pieces of rubber just attached to the midsole. Not a whole lot to talk about there. I mean, I am kind of concerned that this might wear pretty quickly. After this outsole wears, you're pretty much running straight on the midsole, and this middle area right here, there's no rubber here. It's just the midsole that's exposed. So we'll see how that wears. But typically that's kind of how the ring cons are. Like the middle here, this is all just like midsole material, and these tend to hold up fine. So I think we'll be fine with these. So yeah, that's kind of it. Like that's kind of like the overview. Let's talk about the performance and how they feel on foot while running. So the upper, like I mentioned, the structural kind of 3D mesh gives your foot a lot of lockdown. Nike, has those fly wires that kind of come across the lateral medial side around the lace cage to keep your foot locked down for their knitted shoes. This doesn't need that because the upper has enough structural stability to keep your foot locked down. I think the gusseted tongue also helps. So the upper, I really enjoy. I felt a nice breeze. It was like really hot here today, 95 degrees. Running, I felt a nice little breeze on my foot, vented very well, no problems whatsoever with the upper. The midsole is, I guess, what everyone wants to hear about. The swell foam, it's like a very unique feeling foam. I haven't felt anything like this really. I've ran in Zoom X, I've ran in React, I've ran in Boost, I've ran in Burst. Basically, like most of the technologies that all these shoe companies have to offer, I've tried, and this is very unique. It doesn't feel like any of those. I would say it's like, the best way to put it, it's a very light foam. It's way lighter and bouncier than something like React. React is a kind of like a dense foam, but it's a little heavier and more responsive than something like Zoom X. So think of it as somewhere kind of in between Zoom X and React. Maybe kind of like a lighter version of Lunar Lawn from Nike. I don't know if you guys remember Lunar Lawn from Nike. It was like in all their shoes up like 10 years ago. But that stuff, I really like the Lunar Lawn, and this material feels like a lighter, kind of like upgraded version of Lunar Lawn. The problem I have with something like Zoom X, I'm a pretty heavy guy, I'm 240 pounds. Like all that weight on the Zoom X, it didn't support me enough. It would just kind of like squish into nothing, and I wouldn't get enough support. I like React in that sense because React was a little more responsive, a little more structural. So this kind of hits the sweet spot, I think, in between that, where it's squishy enough to be very comfortable. So it has kind of like that Hoka-like running on cloud type of cushy feeling, but it has a little bit of that Zoom X type of hyper bouncy feeling at the same time. So yeah, it's definitely a really cool foam, and I enjoy running in it. Even though I really haven't put in a whole lot of miles on this shoe yet, I think the best use for this type of midsole would be for a everyday trainer. It's not going to be your race day shoe or your tempo run shoe where you're gonna go super fast. I think the limitation with this type of midsole is the fact that it's not meant to go super fast. It's a comfortable plush shoe to run in, but it doesn't have like a carbon shank or anything like that to kind of propel you forward. It's not going to be like a Vaporfly. It's not going to be like a Carbon X. It's going to be more of your kind of like everyday, I'm just going to go run 3 miles because my feet hurt type of shoe. And it's going to be kind of like that shoe that you put on when you just want a nice, long, comfortable run. So I think it's good for that kind of purpose. Speaking of comfort, this is like a very unique problem for me, I noticed, but because I am a overpronator, I have very kind of like flat feet. So when I run, my ankles kind of roll inwards like this. There's absolutely no arch support on this shoe. It's just like the midsole, and that's it. And because of that, I was having a little bit of pronation issues, especially when I was kind of like trying to go around corners quickly. So in that regard, I think you definitely have to consider the fact that this might not be the shoe for you if you overpronate heavily. Maybe RAD will come out with a more structurally supportive shoe in the future, but that is kind of something to consider if you are a heavy pronator. But yeah, I mean, all in all, I think overall it's a great effort for RAD as their first shoe anyway, as their first running shoe. It's a great shoe. It's very comfortable to run in. The design is sick. And I think considering that this is their first ever attempt at it, they have a really promising future in the footwear industry. So we'll see where they go. I'm just gonna throw these on foot so you guys can see what they look like. And yeah, I think that's about it. See you guys in the next one. Bye.